Today we make dilly beans. It's very simple. All you need is your beans, green, yellow, flat, round, whatever kind of beans you got. Garlic, dill that's seeded out. And if you want to make it spicy, you can have some spicy peppers. That's totally up to you. And salt brine. So the first thing I kind of do with this process is get my salt brine ready. I use about 2 tablespoons of sea salt per quart of water. So this is 2 quarts I have here. So I have 4 tablespoons of salt in there. I stir it up or shake it up really nice so it has a chance to dissolve, and that's why I do that first. The next thing that I do is have my quart jars. Excuse me, you need however many quart jars you think you can fill with the beans you have. And I find that I can fit about 0.86 pounds, so not quite a pound, more like half a pound, I suppose, of beans in every quart jar. You can also do pint jars as well. I like to do the wide mouth because I fit them in there sort of single file so they stand up. They look all cute and stuff. So wide mouth. And I start with the dill. It doesn't really matter how big your dill heads are. I just grab and stick them down in there. I want to make sure that the bottom is covered with dill. So that's pretty good. I'll see if I can fit another one in there. I like them dilly, so I'm not afraid to be a little generous there either. I cut the stems of the dill so they don't take up too much space. So usually the stems when I buy them are probably this long and I just chop them off. For garlic, for every quart I use 2 cloves of garlic. So if you're going to do a pint, I would only use 1 clove of garlic, and I just smash them with the flat side of my knife, and that kind of opens the garlic up a little bit to release that flavor. It also helps you peel your garlic as well. So once we got the dill and the garlic inside of the jar, then we can start with the beans. And it doesn't matter really if you leave your beans whole or if you cut them in half. It really is up to you. It doesn't matter if you cut the ends off. I, for time's sake today, are just leaving the ends on where it's attached to the bean plant. And I just sort of put them in my hand, single file. And the smaller ones I usually just throw out because I try to get as many in one jar as possible. And even ones that have a slight curve to the bean, I save those for the top 2 because then they sort of easily hold down the rest of the beans on the top because you want to make sure all the veg stays in the brine. So I'm going to put these in single file. I tip the jar on its side so they don't go and fall over. And I'm just going to keep putting more in. Towards the end, I start adding 1 or 2 at a time when they're getting pretty snug in there. Like I said, I like to try to fit as many as I can in a jar. All right, so now that feels like about as many as I can get in there before they'll start breaking when I try to squeeze more in. So then I'll start taking my beans that are curved, or even the ones that are a little bit too big to fit up and down, and I just start fitting them across. So I'll put one side in and leave the tail out, but enough length to where I can sort of tuck it on the other side. And if there's any beans, sort of unruly ones that are poking up a little bit that didn't get pushed down, you can kind of wedge them underneath the beans that you're bending. All right, fantastic. So we have it full. You can see how far up these go. It's not a super big deal if it goes beyond this line. We're just gonna make sure that the brine covers it. And you can also mix colors of beans too, like I did with this one. And this one I used like shorter beans, and then I also cut some. And I also wanted to note too, that if your dill starts to get brown, it doesn't really matter. It still tastes like dill. So you can be picky about it or not. Next, we're gonna pour in the brine and screw on the covers, and then we'll be done. So you kind of want to go a little bit slow since it has to fill all the air gaps in between the beans. And I usually like fill one jar and then I go to the next because it'll sort of settle and air will come to the top. All right, there's a little bit of a dill seed that floated to the top of this one. So I'm gonna just pick that guy out and toss him. Oh, here's another one too. And I do wanna note that I keep everything very clean. So my hands, the jars, the counter, everything's very clean. So your ferment is very pure as well. Don't want any funky bacteria in there or it's not gonna go the way that you want it to. So we're just gonna put the lids on, regular mason jar canning lids. And after I put the lids on, I usually set it on a plate or in a baking dish, something that will catch liquid. Because over the course of about 3 days in the fermentation process, it's very likely that some juices will come out if it's filled really full. And the tops will pop up. So that's totally normal as well. These take 7 days at room temperature. Just keep them out of direct light. They don't have to be in the dark, but just out of direct light for 7 days and then refrigerate them. So they're not good for long storage at room temperature, but they'll stay in your fridge for, I've had them for up to a year. I actually made enough last summer to last me until this summer, which is amazing. Children love these. I have noticed I cannot make enough of them for the children in my life. So I hope you guys enjoy this. I'm really excited to see what you can do with it and put that bounty of the harvest to use. Yay.